Recording has started. So I want to talk about web development. The purpose of this training is to introduce you to the world of web development. So, web development is a process of developing an application that will run on a web browser. So web applications, they run on a web browser. We want to develop an application that you're going to be able to open on web browsers such as Chrome, Firefox, Opera Mini, on web browsers generally. Next is it a must? I want to answer this question, that is it a must for you to learn coding or programming to be a web developer? And the answer is no. It's not a must. Even though what we want to teach you during this training is programming, we want to teach you coding, programming, but it's not a must for you to do that before you are a web developer, before you become a web developer. It's not. But then, if you want to build a career in web development, then I will advise that you learn programming. Yes, because if you learn programming, you'll be able to go far in the field. You'll be able to go far. We have a lot of systems. We call them content management systems, CMS. Example of that is WordPress. WordPress is an example of such. With a platform like WordPress, you don't even need to learn programming at all, but then you will be limited in what you can do. We want to bring you into a limitless life, like a place whereby you can do anything that comes to your mind. You can program it, you can develop it, and then you can have it out there, so that you're not going to be limited by one or two things. Number two is this: if you are a programmer or a web programmer now, then you're able to apply to different, or you have varieties of opportunities, and you can seize these opportunities. Now, after saying this, let's now discuss different parts of web development. On a web page, we have 3 sections. Number 1, we have the front end. Number 2, we have the server side. And number 3, we have the database. So let's discuss these 3 one after the other. The front end. The front end is that part of a web application that you can see, that you can relate with. The server side is that part of a web application that you cannot see, but is the one that processes what will be sent to the front end. Is the one that processes those things that will be displayed at the front end. So it does the processing. Then we have the database. The database is that part where information is kept. So again, we have the front end, we have the server, that's the server side, and we have the database. The front end is that part that you can see, that you can relate with. The server side is that part that processes those things that will be displayed to us at the front end, and the database is that part where information is kept. Now, let me use a simpler things, what we can easily relate with to understand this. Imagine, I love using the concept of a restaurant. A restaurant. If you get to a restaurant, you have that part that you can sit. People attend to you there. I mean waiters, they will attend to you there. That part is the front end. That's where you are interacting with the restaurant. If you want to buy anything, that's where you are served. That's where you place your orders. So that part is the front end. Then we have the server side. The food that will be served to you at the front end will be processed somewhere. It will be cooked somewhere at the kitchen. You are not seeing the kitchen, you are only seeing your food. But the food that will be served to you will definitely be cooked somewhere. So that place whereby your food is being cooked, that kitchen is the server. It is where the processing happens. Now, lastly, the food that will be cooked at the kitchen or inside the kitchen will be stored somewhere in the store. That store is the database. So at any point in time, when it's time to cook, you go to the database, to the store now, and you fetch little quantity of food that will be processed at that moment. In this case, little data that will be processed at that moment. For those of us that are just joining us, please kindly note that this class is recorded. So please don't display sensitive information on the screen. Please. Thank you. Let's continue. So the food will be fetched at the kitchen, from the store. It will be fetched from the store, taken to the kitchen, processed in the kitchen, then taken to the waiting area where the waiter will serve the guest or the customer. So the kitchen is the server, the store is the database, while the main hall or the dining hall is the front end. Now, most times we usually call the server and database, we usually call that the back end. We usually call that the back end. So we can say we have the front end and the back end, but the back end now has two parts, which is the server and the database. Having discussed that, before we proceed, do we have any question? Okay, let's move on. Let's now talk about the front end of our application. At the front end, that's where we are starting from. We want to develop that part of the web application that our users can see, that our users can relate with. At the front end, we'll be learning three things, three major parts here. Number one, we'll be learning HTML. I will type it out. HTML. Number two, you will also be learning CSS. And third, you'll be learning JavaScript. Every other thing that you'll be learning at the front end uses any of these three. Like it's either you'll be learning some other things, but then the foundation is these three: HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Let's discuss what each of these, what it does. Each of these, what it does. So let's discuss the first one, HTML. The first one, HTML, gives us, that's where you define the layout of your page. The layout of your page. Back to our restaurant's analogy. When you get to a restaurant, your table will be somewhere, and that table will be surrounded with chairs. Now, that table and chair that you have there, they are like layout. A table is expected to be here, and the table is expected to be surrounded with chairs. Then there will be a place so let's proceed from where. Let me quickly recap. We said a web application is divided into three parts. We have the front end, we have the server side, and we have the database. The front end is that part of a web application that we can see and relate with. The server side is that part of the web application where processing happens, and the database is that part where our information is being stored.
This stuff of my life, we can mute ourselves so that we can hear that very well.
Let's everybody go on mute, please. Okay. So we have the front end, the server side, and the database. Front end, that's the part we relate with. The server side is that part where the processing happens, and the database is that part where our information is being stored. Then I also told us that the server side and the database usually call this the back end. Now, having said this, let's now talk about the front end. We are going to start this training from the front end. The front end has three essential parts. The first is HTML, the second is CSS, and the third is JavaScript. Every other thing you'll be learning in front-end development, it's still under this topic. So let's pick the first one, HTML. So we're going to tell us the full meaning of HTML, but let's discuss what it means, the real meaning, before telling us the full meaning. HTML is an acronym, but let's discuss the real meaning so that you have the understanding of what HTML is. HTML helps you to create the layout of your web page. The layout of your web page. That is, see it as a foundation. It tells you what will be here. It tells the page what will be here, what is expected to be here. Back to our analogy of a restaurant. The front end, remember, the front end is that part that users or customers enter and they can relate with. So, with that part where the table is set and the chairs are set, that is the HTML. You know, when you set up a restaurant, you already have a section for customers. You will have a section for maybe where the food will be served and all of that. You will have all those things set out, mapped out while setting up your restaurant. So all those parts, they are HTML. You know that right from the beginning, you know that a table will be here and chairs will be here. You know that this will be the section where food will be served. So that layout is HTML. So we are going to create the layout of our web page using HTML. Let's discuss the next one, the CSS. The HTML tells us the layout, but it doesn't tell us the design of the layout. The CSS is like the makeup of our web page. It helps us beautify our web page. For instance, I know a table will be here, but I don't know the color of the table. I know a chair will be here, but I don't know the color of the chairs. That is, the HTML tells us a table will be here, but HTML will not tell us the color of the table. Meaning, I can wake up tomorrow and put a blue table there. Then, 2 days later, I can change my mind and change it to a green table. CSS handles the design. What tells me whether the table is green or blue is CSS. HTML only tells me a table will be here, but it doesn't tell me how the table will look like. So CSS handles the design of your application, how it will look like. So you beautify, it's like the makeup of your page. Let's now go to the third one, JavaScript. Now, while HTML handles the layout and CSS handles the design, JavaScript handles the logic, the functionalities, is like the energy, the brain behind the front end. Now, back to our restaurant example. The waiter that attends to me is performing a function, that is JavaScript. The waiter will serve me food, that is JavaScript. When I'm done eating, the waiter will pack my plate and take it away. That is JavaScript. The functionalities, not just now you are taking your page from a page that users can just read to a page that users can interact with. Without a waiter, I'll just be there seated and nothing happens. I'll just be there looking. But a waiter will be the one to bring the menu list to me. I'll go to the menu list, then tell the waiter what I need. The waiter will go, get the food for me, then bring it to me, and all of that. So the JavaScript is, that waiter at that point is part of the JavaScript of that section. Is the one responsible for the functionality of your web page, functionalities of your web page. So summary of this is that HTML handles the layout, CSS handles the design and the look, how it's going to look like. Maybe the color of the restaurant, all of that will be handled with CSS. Then JavaScript handles the logic behind it, the functionalities of your web page. And each of these three, we are going to look at each of these three. But let's pick the very first one, HTML. Of course, before you want to design something, you first create a layout. When you are done creating the layout, you can now start designing that layout. Of course, again, let's use another example. Let's use building. Before I can talk about maybe designing my room, I need to first have a room. I need to first create a layout. So we first start with HTML, then before we talk about the design. So if I use a room as an example, the layout, that room is the HTML. The design in my room, maybe the wallpaper, the color and all of that is the CSS. Then the functionality, maybe we talk about the fan. Functionality is the JavaScript. So, having discussed that, let's now go straight to coding. We've talked about this. We want to start writing HTML codes. But before we start, do we have any question? Any question? Yes. If you have any question, I think some of us also got some messages. Let me read our messages. Do you have any question? In absence of questions, let's continue. So, I want to assume that we've all installed either Sublime Text or Visual Studio Code. I want to assume that we've installed any of these two, either of these two. So, if you have that, you said?
I was trying to use the link on the WhatsApp, but it's not going on my phone. I don't know, maybe it's not for me.
I can't tell you.
I wanted to download the two programs we talked about now.
Okay.
But I was unable to download it.
Okay, if you have any, maybe downloading or installing any of these two, you can drop it on the group after the class. Just drop it on the group. But after installing and downloading and installing this software, let's start somewhere today. Then tomorrow we continue from wherever we stop today. Don't worry, today we just introduce us to coding, and tomorrow we now do more. We're going to do more. So let's start. I will share my screen with us now. Can we all see my screen? Please, can we see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, it's trying to come up.
Okay. So, if you download Sublime Text, this will be the first page you will see. After opening it, download it. After downloading it, open it. Then this will be the first thing you will see. You will see this page. So what are you to do after that? So this is what you're going to do. Go to anywhere on your system. Well, I will do that on my desktop. I will create a folder. I can call it any name of my choice. I will just call it HTML codes. So I have a folder here called HTML codes. So let's go back to this. What we want to do is
Henrietta, please mute your microphone. Henrietta.
Okay. So what we want to do is we want to create a file, then save the file inside this folder that we just created. you want to create a file, a new file, then we now save the file into this folder. That's the next thing we want to do. So let's do that together. Now open this and just press Ctrl S. Ctrl S. Go to that file. The file is on my go to that folder. The folder is on my desktop. I will look for the folder on my desktop. Then the name of the folder is HTML codes. HTML codes. So this is the folder. Again, let's do it again. When you open Sublime Text, then you press Ctrl S. You know, Ctrl S is to save something. Then you navigate to that folder. The folder is on my desktop. So look for HTML codes. You want to save it. I can call it any name of my choice. Now before I save it, I need to quickly explain something called extension. Extension. When you send picture to me on WhatsApp and I try to open that picture after downloading the picture, if I try to open it, how do you think my phone is able to know the right application to open the picture? In fact, if you send the documents to me, how my phone will open it will be different from the way it's going to open picture. And that is possible because of extension. When a file ends with some things, applications or operating systems know how to open them. If your pictures usually end with JPG extension, PNG, while documents usually end with maybe .pdf or .docs or something like that. So when you send something to me and that thing ends with JPG, my phone knows that since it ends with JPG, .jpg, it knows that, oh, this thing is a picture. Then I need to open it with a software that opens pictures. If you send something to me and it ends with .pdf, my phone knows, or my device now knows that, oh, this thing is a document and it needs to be opened with something, or with a PDF reader, or with something that opens PDF. So generally, operating system checks the extension of all documents on our device, and it's able to use that to know how to open such file. Operating system, they check all the extensions of all files on our device. Then with that, it now knows how to open such file. Now, with that in mind, remember at the beginning of the class, I told us that a web application runs on a web browser. It runs on a web application. A web application runs on a web browser. How does it know? How does your device know? How does it know how to open it? Or how does it know that it should open it on a web browser? It's because of the extension. It checks the extension. Oh, this thing ends with something that needs to be opened on a browser. Then instantly it goes to the browser. So why am I telling us all of this? We want to save this file. Remember the other time I told us that I want to save this. You can give it any name, but that name needs to end with an extension that can be opened on a browser. So you can give it any name. I can call it first class. These are first class. I can just call it first class like this. Then it needs to end with .html. It is very important. This can be anything. In fact, I can just come here and say anything. This can be anything. But that thing, whatever you write here, must end with .html. So let's save it. Let's do it again. I will create another file. So I press Ctrl N to open a new one. Let's save this second one. I'll call this another file. The reason I'm using this name is for you to know that you can use anything, any name of your choice, but just ensure that it ends with .html. Now, if you observe something, I did not put any space between another and file. It's not that if you put spaces, it's not going to work. It will work, but it's not. Well, I don't encourage it. Personally, I don't encourage it. Ensure that your file name does not contain spaces. Ensure that your file name does not contain spaces. So if I check the folder now, I'll see two files there. This is the first one and this is the second one. Do we have any question on that? So we've created two files, and if you check, you can see that it already puts Google Chrome. That's because my default browser on this device is Google Chrome. That's why we have this there. It automatically knows that these files must be open on a web browser. It automatically knows because of the extension, because of the .html. If it were to be something else, it won't put these symbols. It won't put Google Chrome here. So before we start writing our first set of codes, I want to explain something called tags and attributes. That's where we're going to stop today. Tomorrow we start writing codes. Tags and attributes. In HTML, we'll be using tags and we'll be using attributes. So let's discuss the first one, which is tag. Let me remove this. Let's discuss the first one, which is tags. What is a tag? A tag is a command in HTML. A tag is a command in HTML. In fact, I can say a tag is HTML command is HTML command. No, when you program something, you are trying to command that thing, and that's what you want to do now. You want to command some things. You want to make some things happen, and you are going to be making those things happen using tags. Now let's look at how tags work. When you write a tag, this is how to write a tag. Let's assume my name is Taye Abidakun. So if I want to command this Taye Abidakun to sleep, I want to command Taye Abidakun to sleep. This is how to write the tag. You come to the beginning of it, you write sleep. Note this sign. A tag starts with this less than sign, less than, then the command. I want Taye to sleep. So I'm saying this less than, then the command, which is sleep, then greater than. Then you now close it. Less than. Note the difference. Note that there's a slash here, but there's no slash here. This is the beginning, and this is the end. When you open a tag, you close it back. What I'm just doing is I'm saying Taye Abidakun sleep. Let's look at some other things. Let's say I have a friend called Tolu. I want Tolu to eat. I will go to the beginning of Tolu. I'll say eat. Then I will go to the end of Tolu and I will close it. Let's say I have a sister called Kemi. So I want my sister to jump. I will go to the beginning of Kemi, I will say jump. I will go to the end of Kemi, I will say jump. So what I'm saying is Kemi should jump. So this is how to write a command. You go to the beginning, you put a less than, then the command you want to give to it. Then you put this greater than. Then you now go to the end of that thing, you put another less than. But this time around, it will have a slash. Note that the first one does not have. Why? But this one will. This one will. Now I want us to now note something. What happens if I don't put this one? Let's discuss that. What happens if maybe I want Taye to sleep and I just decide not to put the closing one. What will happen is that although Taye Abidakun will sleep, but Tolu will also sleep and Kemi will also sleep because I did not tell HTML where to stop. This sleep will affect everything after this part. Again, let's assume I did not put this. What happens? Tolu will hit and Kemi will also hit because I did not tell it where to stop. This is where it's starting from, but I'm not telling it the ending point, like where it should end. I'm only telling it where to start without informing HTML where this thing should end. Do we understand? Let's look at another example together. Let's say let's have Taye. Okay, let's have Taye. Just since Taye think most of you see me using things like this because I'm a twin. So let's say I want Taye and Kendi to work. Yes, I want Taye and Kendi to work. We have these three. So what I would do is I will come here and say work. So I will come here, then I will come to this place and end it. Note that I'm not ending it here. If I end it here, I'm only saying that I only want Taye to work. But by ending it here, I want both Taye and Kendi to work. So both of them now will work. But Idowu will not work because Idowu is not within this place. Only these two will work. Only this. This is the beginning. This is where it's starting from, and this is where it ends. So I'm saying whatever I write after this must work, and whatever I write before this must work. So this is where it's starting from, and this is where it's ending. This is where it should end. Again, if I want Kendi and let's say Kendi and Idowu, I want the two of them to run. So let me remove this work now. If I want Kendi and Idowu to run, I will go to the beginning of Kendi and I'll put on. Then I will go to end of Idowu. I will close it. So I'm saying Kendi and Idowu should run. Taye will not run because it's before this. Any question? So this is where we'll be stopping today. We'll be ending today. In our next class, we talk about what an attribute is. What is an attribute? We've discussed what a tag is. A tag is a command. Then tomorrow, we talk about what an attribute is and we write some codes together. Please, you have the floor. If you have any question, please kindly ask.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello, sir. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you
You're
for
welcome.
the good word. God bless you. It was so explanatory. Please,
Ah,
I just want to confirm something.
I
Right
can
before
tell
we
you.
got here, we were talking about when we were saving something that we should not leave a space.
Talking about.
And when we were saving,
Okay.
when you type, yeah, I just want to get that. I don't think I put it quite enough.
And we just want to. When we were saving, I heard that part. But
Oh,
I didn't hear what
sorry.
you said after.
When you were typing, you typed two documents. So you
Okay.
said we should, there shouldn't be a space. Is it between each one I used to save it, or between the two documents? I got lost there.
Okay. No, I only created two documents just to make us understand it better. Like, not, but about the spacing. This is, for instance, let's create a new one. Let's save it. Let's say I want to save it with my new class. I could have saved it like this. .html. We have space here. This is a space. This is a space. But I said, while it will work, although it will work, but I don't encourage it that you put spacing between these names. Do we understand?
Oh, yeah.
I don't encourage it. We can write it like this and it will work, but then I don't encourage putting spacing between them. There are other ways to do it. We can use underscore instead. You can use underscore to separate them. You can also, there are different ways to go about this, but then I don't encourage you putting spacing between the names, like in this name.
Oh, oh, all right. I got it now. Thank you so much.
Alright. Any other question? Okay. So I will upload this video on YouTube and send the link to us. Thank you very much. We'll meet tomorrow, same time. We are going to use the same link also. The same link. Then practice it. If you have any question while practicing before tomorrow, you can drop it on the group or you message me. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to class.
Thank
Good
you
night.
so much.